A pharaoh has died. The sun sets over the Nile. Priests are summoned. The air smells of incense and decay. Somewhere, a linen-wrapped body waits, and so do the knives. Welcome, my morbidly curious friends. I'm Lauren the Mortician, and if you've ever wondered what it takes to preserve a body for 3,000 years and make it look semi-decent while doing it, buckle up, Buttercup. We're diving into the world of Egyptian embalming, but not the stuff from your 6th grade social studies textbook. Oh no, we're talking brain hooks, ritual cosplay, corpse-eating oils, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of human sacrifice. So let's get weird. And Hannah, if you could put my intro, could you put that here? So let's get one thing straight. Not everyone in ancient Egypt got the deluxe mummy treatment. This was capitalism with a pyramid on top. When a pharaoh died, it wasn't just the end of a life. It was the beginning of a cosmic journey. Egyptians believed the king became Osiris, god of the dead. So they didn't just embalm a body, they prepared a vessel for divinity. First came putrefaction. The body was washed in palm wine and Nile water, symbolic and spiritual. Then the embalmers removed the internal organs with precision, placing each one into canopic jars guarded by the 4 sons of Horus. Now, these jars weren't just storage, they were bodyguards for your guts, essentially. And the heart? Oh, the heart was everything. It was weighed against the feather of Maat in the afterlife. Too heavy with sin? You were eaten by a demon. Too light? You ascend. So some say they kept the heart in. Others say it was replaced with a scarab amulet to fake good behavior. But who knows? Ancient flex regardless. Why would they have to fake good behavior? I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Next, the empty body was filled with they had to fake good behavior because he was a king and they got away with more sin than the not divinity bound people, maybe? I don't know. Interesting theory. Anyways, now moving on. Next, the empty body was filled with linen, spices, and sometimes sawdust. Whatever it took to keep the skin full and lifelike. Then came 40 days in Nitron, a salt blend strong enough to turn you into ancient jerky. But the final step, that's where it got theatrical. Oils and resins were painted on like embalming armor. The face was masked in gold. Amulets were slipped between the linen wrappings, each one a magical insurance policy. And the wrapping process, it was basically a religious rite. Each layer came with its own chant, its own spell, and its own purpose. And all of this to ensure the pharaoh wouldn't just survive death, but rule in the afterlife. So let's talk middle class mummification. If the pharaoh's death was a cosmic red carpet, the wealthy upper middle class got the velvet rope adjacent. You weren't divine, but you had connections and coin. This tier of embalming was less invasive but still respectful. You got a natron scrubbed down just like the pharaohs, but your organs, they usually stayed right where they were inside your body. Instead of custom jars, you might get your chest stuffed with sawdust or resin to slow decay. A few amulets, if your family shelled out. Linen wrappings, sure, but not layered with spells. Think more cozy cocoon than arcane armor. And your coffin was wood, with a painted-on smile and eyes that never quite looked in the same direction. Still, you looked presentable, and in the afterlife, that's half the battle. And then we have what would be the Egyptian equivalent of a budget burial. Because for the rest of us regular broke mortals, the cheapest form of mummification, no jars, no oils, no gold mask, just goop and sand. And this is where it gets delightfully horrifying. Some embalmers would inject cedar oil or plant resin directly into the rectum, cork it shut, and let it sit. The oil would liquefy your internal organs, turning you into a human Capri Sun. Then they drain you from the other end. Yes, the other end. No incisions, no evisceration, just chemical chaos. You'd be dried out, wrapped up, and buried somewhere quick. Maybe a tomb, if your family cared. Maybe the desert, if they didn't. And if even that was too expensive, you were buried straight in the sand, naked, fetal position, and let the heat do the work. Mother Nature, the original mortician. So yeah, how you got mummified really depended on your net worth. In death, as in life, it's all about the budget. Again, I kind of hate that, but it is what it is, and this is history, and we're just telling it like it is. So let's talk brains. We've all heard the classic line, they removed the brain through the nose using a hook. Cue every kid in class gagging while the teacher explains it over a bad PowerPoint. But here's what most people don't know. It wasn't just a hook. The embalmers used a metal rod, sometimes with a curved tip. They'd insert it through the nostril and fracture the thin bone between the nasal cavity and the brain, the cribriform plate, if we want to get technical. Then they'd stir it around like a grisly smoothie. Sometimes they even used water to flush the pulp out. But that wasn't always effective. In some cases, they had to break open the skull from the back to extract what was left. Sometimes they just left the brain in, especially for lower tier burials where speed mattered more than tradition. And here's the kicker. Egyptians didn't value the brain. To them, the brain wasn't the seat of thought or emotion, the heart was. So the brain was often discarded, literally scooped and tossed. Some archaeologists have found skulls with hardened resin just sloshed around inside, meaning embalmers poured preservatives in there without even bothering to clean the brain mush out. There's my little section about the brain. Let's talk resins, the real MVPs of mummification you might not have heard of. Forget essential oils on Etsy. Ancient Egyptians were out here making corpse-preserving concoctions that could put modern mortuary chemicals to shame. What did they actually use? Natron, a naturally occurring mix of sodium carbonate, baking soda, salt, and sodium sulfate. They used pine resin, sticky, antimicrobial, and made your corpse smell forest fresh. Myrrh and frankincense, fancy and fungal fighting, that's important. Cedar oil, a natural degreaser that also liquefied organs, as we saw in budget burials. Bitumen, a tar-like substance that made some mummies look like they were dipped in asphalt. It was black, shiny, and hard as rock. Some historians even think this is what gave them the term mummia, which medieval doctors later ground into a powder and sold as medicine. Yep, people literally snorted ancient bodies for health. You're welcome. Here's the crazy part. Some of the oils found in royal tombs contained ingredients not native to Egypt. Researchers found resins traced back to India and Southeast Asia, meaning the Egyptians had a global supply chain for their embalming products long before Amazon Prime. You died in Egypt, but you were preserved with imports. Application, please. These oils weren't just slathered on willy-nilly. Oh no, they were poured into body cavities, painted onto the skin in layers, soaked into linen strips that were then wrapped with careful intention. Some oils acted as glue, bonding the wrappings in place. Others sealed off bacteria. And some were just for the scent alone because, as many morticians know, masking the smell is half the battle. Basically, the pharaoh's body got a full spa treatment, only, post-mortem. Let's get weird, because embalming wasn't just science, it was sacred performance art. So I want to talk to you about the opening of the mouth ceremony. So after 70 days of mummification, the final step wasn't just wrapping the body, it was waking the soul. Priests would perform the opening of the mouth, a symbolic ritual meant to restore the deceased's ability to speak, breathe, eat, and drink in the afterlife. They used ceremonial tools, often shaped like blades, pressed to the lips, eyes, and ears. Sometimes a priest would even impersonate Anubis, wearing a full jackal-headed mask during the ceremony. Imagine being buried while a masked man chants over your gold-wrapped corpse. It's giving Black Parade meets National Geographic. Did you know they had professional mourners in Egypt? Wailing, hair-pulling, dust-throwing, sometimes bloodletting for dramatic effect. Two women were often chosen to represent the goddess Isis and Nephthys. That's a good one. Weeping at the head and the foot of the body. Humans weren't the only ones getting embalmed in Egypt. They had an entire animal mummification industry, and it was wild. Cats were the sacred children of Bastet and were mummified by the millions. Millions of cats got embalmed over there. Crocodiles were linked to Sobek and embalmed in full terrifying glory. Could you imagine having to be the person that went to go capture the crocodile? Unless they just died of natural causes randomly. I don't know. That's so crazy. That was somebody's job in Egypt. Like a crocodile hunter in Egypt, maybe that was his past life. They also embalmed baboons and bulls. If there was a god for it, there was a mummified version somewhere. But here's where it gets sketchy. Demand got so high, embalmers started cutting corners. Weird. Some cat mummies were just bundles of fur and sticks. Come on now. A 2015 study found that 1/3 of all animal mummies were empty. That's right, mummy fraud. The OG funeral scam started in Egypt. So, did people die for the pharaoh? Was there sacrifice in the afterlife? Yes. Especially in the early dynastic periods, there are mass graves found around royal tombs. Young men, servants, even possibly wives, all buried at the same time. Some were strangled based on bone damage, poisoned, according to some ancient texts, or possibly even volunteers chosen for the honor. Though, let's be honest, volunteer might have been loosely defined then. Eventually, this practice faded and was replaced with ushabti figurines, tiny statues meant to symbolically do labor in the afterlife. That's much more OSHA approved, I'd say. But for a while, real humans went down with the king, and it was an honor. Okay, buckle up because this one is disgusting, unnecessary, and 100% true. So in ancient Egypt, embalmers would delay embalming the bodies of beautiful women, sometimes for 3 or 4 days. Why? To let decomposition set in. Not for spiritual reasons, not for ritual purity, but because some men couldn't keep their damn hands to themselves. And I wish I were kidding. According to ancient sources, they delayed the process specifically so the women wouldn't be tempting anymore by the time they hit the embalming table. Yes, these women had to be intentionally decayed to protect them, let's just say, from postmortem perversion. Because the creeps weren't just alive back then, they were on the payroll. We're talking built-in rot to prevent assault. As a mortician, I've seen a lot, but the fact that this was a policy, gross doesn't even begin to cover it. And here's the kicker. It wasn't even uncommon. It was standard practice in some places. So next time someone says things were so much more respectful in ancient times, you can remind them that Egypt literally invented putrefaction as a protective measure for women. Yeah. Let that sink in. Ancient Egypt, where even in death, women had to deal with men being the worst. Anyways, let's talk death real estate. Coffin versus sarcophagus. Sarcophagus. That is a word. You spell it right now. Can you spell sarcophagus? S-A-R-C-O-P-H-A-G-U-S. Would you have gotten it? Doubt it. Well, when you died, you were basically turned into a corpse nesting doll. Layer upon layer, each one fancier than the last. You had your inner coffin, usually human-shaped, wood, and painted like your best glam shot. Then you had the middle coffin, your outerwear for the underworld, fancy, sometimes gilded. Then there was the sarcophagus, carved stone, protective inscriptions, and curses galore. Pharaoh, now I know why everyone just calls him King Tut. Pharaoh Tut, King Tut, Pharaoh Tut, Tank Hamun. Pharaoh Tut, Tank Hamun had 3 nested coffins inside a sarcophagus, inside 4 nested shrines. That's not burial. That's the metaphysical version of, I just ordered a small package and it showed up in a refrigerator-sized box. So we can't have a funeral without a little bit of death drama. So did you know that they had death drama, royal rebels, and tomb trouble, even in Egyptian pharaoh times? Hatshepsut, powerful female pharaoh, ruled like a king, wore the beard, and after she died, her stepson tried to erase her. Her mummy misplaced for 3,000 years and ID'd by a rogue tooth in a jar. Pharaohs who were reburied, grave robbers were so rampant that priests dug up royal bodies and stashed them in secret tombs. Like Deir el-Bahari, over 40 royal mummies were stuffed into a cliff like cursed Tupperware. And then there's King Tut's messy burial. His body was charred from embalming oils, sealed too tight. The paint was still wet when sealed, and his famous golden mask didn't even fit his face. It's giving rushed group project the night before eternity. You had one job. And then here's a final freaky fact. The screaming mummy. He was found with his mouth wide open, no wrappings, no tomb, possibly buried alive or disgraced. Likely Prince Pentaware, who helped assassinate his own dad, Ramses III, and got the bad burial treatment. This is giving the mummy. Do you remember that part in the mummy where that guy kind of got mummified alive? That's what this is giving. He had no name on the coffin, no dignity, just 3,000 years of mouth wide open screaming. That's creepy. It's a long time too. I lied, you get one more final freaky fact. Did you know that in ancient Egypt, they prepared bodies for public rituals where the public would come, kind of similar to how we have visitations or open casket viewings in present times. And for those open viewings, they would have their facial features stuffed with linen and smoothed with beeswax. Interesting, we use wax today in the prep room. They had their eyeliner painted, cheeks blushed. Some even got buried with makeup kits in case they needed a touch-up after crossing into the afterlife. That's really cool. I want one of those in my casket too. If your soul had to recognize your body, you'd better be looking afterlife ready, not extra crispy. Oh, that's got me thinking about King Tut. Poor King Tut. So what have we learned today? The ancient Egyptians were the original morticians. That resin and natron were the death equivalent of Botox and setting spray, that people were literally melted to save money, and that even in death, the drama never ends. From royalty buried in golden Russian dolls to women left to rot before embalming to protect their modesty, to priests faking animal mummies and sons maybe murdering their pharaoh dads. Welcome to ancient Egypt, baby, where the afterlife was a full-time job and embalming was part science, part sorcery, and part scandal. If you made it this far, you're officially in the Morbidly Curious Club. And let me know in the comments what you want me to dig up next week. Should we go full body snatcher with grave robbing through history? What happens to a body in a tomb for 2,000 years? Ancient autopsies? Famous autopsies? Famous mummies with unsolved mysteries? Vote below like your eternal soul depends on it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so the next time a pharaoh dies, you're the first to know. I'm Lauren the Mortician, your embalming BFF, your death care tour guide, and your one-stop shop for beautifully disturbing facts you'll absolutely regret learning during lunch. See you in the next life, or next week. Love you, bye! Did you want to say hi to the dog? I'll tell you her name. No, just kidding. I'm going to keep it a surprise still. Hold on. Where you? Oh, goodness. Oh, I had to wake the dead. Oh.